I just wanted to start this session by doing a quick reflection on what we mean when we talk about well-being. And what I wanted to highlight to everyone, looking at these definitions that I put on the slide. So the first one from the World Health Organization talks about a state of well-being being a situation where an individual is able to their own potential, cope with the stresses of life, be productive, and make a contribution to the community and the society. But importantly, when we talk about well-being, whether it's physical, mental, social, and emotional, we mean the opportunity to actually flourish and be productive and really reach our potential, and not merely the absence of a disease. So when we talk about well-being, we're not just talking about any help or any support for existing difficulties or problems, but we're actually talking about the other side of the spectrum, if that makes sense. So actually enriching our lives, enriching our ability to reach that potential. I think this has become a really important term, especially as I'm working in schools. I see more and more people really using this term and understanding that the importance of actually looking at it from the positive side rather than just kind of trying to eliminate or remove as much as possible any barriers or any difficulties. So having said that, I want to start off by just quickly going through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because this is a time when some of the things that we're used to taking for granted, we're finding quite difficult because of the current pandemic. So what the hierarchy of needs, what this theory says, is that in order to move up the pyramid, you need to have fulfilled your more basic needs first, so that you can then move on to the psychological needs and then actually move on to being able to achieve everything that you are capable of achieving and becoming. So at the bottom of the pyramid, you've got your physiological needs. So you need food, you need water, you need warmth, you need sleep. So what this theory says is that actually, if you don't have food, if you don't have water, if you're not able to sleep, if one of your basic needs are thwarted, you're not really able to do more cognitively demanding tasks. So for example, concentrating in order to do a task, or going to work, or doing any of those functions would be really difficult. In those basic needs, you've also got your safety needs. So actually feeling safe and secure. And I think that at this point now, that is perhaps a section that we might need to focus on a little bit more, because we're all anxious about what the coronavirus means for us at the moment, about what might happen. We all have different personal family situations, and this theory is saying that actually this is a time to focus on meeting those needs very importantly before we move on to stressing about other things, such as, for example, children keeping up with their learning, or us keeping up with our productivity at work. So really, it's about giving ourselves a break and saying, you know, actually this is a time to focus on those basic needs as well, without putting too much pressure. Now, moving up the pyramid, you've got your psychological needs, so your belongingness and love needs, and your self-esteem needs, so your need for that feeling of accomplishment. And what's really important again is that in order to move up and you know, have that accomplishment, that sense of accomplishment, but even move to the very top, those self-fulfillment needs, we need to feel that, you know, the sensation that we have those personal relationships and those bonds, and that sense of belonging. So again, it's about, you know, what I wanted to stress with this theory is that this is actually a time to maybe think about the bottom end of the pyramid a little bit more and make sure that we're connecting with people, that we're nurturing our relationships, and that we're doing everything that we can for us to feel safe and secure within this pandemic before we think about actually being more productive, achieving any other higher goals, and sort of looking at that other aspect of thriving, because this is how we will be allowed to thrive. Another model that I quickly wanted to go over with everyone is called the Perma Model. So this was developed by Martin Seligman. And what this model says is that there are 5 individual elements that make up well-being. Now, they're not, one is not related to the other. So they're individually worked on, and they're not, it's not that we try to work on these 5 areas in order to achieve well-being. Rather, well-being comes from focusing of each of these as a process rather than looking at the final outcome. So PERMA is an acronym to help us remember. So positive emotions. Seligman says that, and Seligman is one of the key figures of positive psychology. So really thinking about how we think of ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors positively in order to then impact on our future development and thrive, really. So it's that side of thriving rather than trying to, again, take away a barrier or solve a problem. So the positive emotion that we all must try to work on in this time is really actively trying to think positively about the past, about things that have happened in the past. So when we think about things, we have this saying that we sometimes use with kids as well, that we say, you know, you could be wearing your positive glasses or your negative glasses. So if we try to put on our positive glasses and look at what things have happened in the past in a positive way, trying to, yes, maybe there were some difficulties and maybe there were things that were that upset us or frustrated us, but was there anything good that came out of that? So really trying to focus on that, trying to have positive emotions about the present. So really thinking about trying to focus on positive things in the moment, in our current situation, and also thinking positively about the future. So of course we don't know what's coming, but having a positive outlook. And you know, this is not to say that there are not individual differences. So some people are just more that, you know, this comes easier to some people than to others, and that's fine. But we can all, for ourselves, try to be a bit more, have a bit more intention when we're thinking about the past, the present, and the future. Engagement is another aspect of the Perma Model, which really talks about really being engaged and focused in the activity that we're doing. So really being in, you know, when you're doing something and you can see that your skills are just right for you to be able to complete it, and you might enter a situation which we've also termed flow. So when you're in the flow, you're in the zone and you're really sort of engaged and engrossed in what you're doing. Having relationships, this is one of the most important things. So first of all, there's a lot of research showing that having good social relationships is actually the best predictor of happiness. So it's the #1 thing that people have reported made the difference. Belonging has been identified as a fundamental need. And really, we are social beings, and relationships is a very important part of our lives. So nurturing those relationships, and again, being intentional about those. Meaning, finding meaning in something beyond ourselves, something larger. That could be family, or it could be religion, it could be a particular belief. It could be a social cause, for example, the environment, but really thinking about what is really meaningful for us and what can we be a part of, so that we feel that actually there is a wider meaning in our life. And that might take a little bit of reflection. And it's something that, again, we can do as a family, and it's quite nice to sort of be, not that everyone has to have exactly the same meaning or pursuit, but it's something that is very nice to be discussed. And accomplishment is the last part of the model, which is really being able to master something or accomplish something just for the sake of it. So not because it brings another outcome, such as a relationship or a positive emotion, but actually the sensation of mastering something. So these are two basic models that we can use, throughout our lives, and I think they're quite important for the ups and downs that we have generally. But what I also wanted to cover today in this session, and I know that we don't have that much time, so quite quickly, is a model developed by Russ Harris, who is one of the main figures in acceptance and commitment therapy. He's also the author of The Happiness Trap. I don't know if people have read this, but it's a model that pertains to this particular situation of the coronavirus, integrating all of the main principles of acceptance and commitment therapy. And the initials, for everyone to be able to remember, is Facecoded. So we'll go through them really quickly, one by one. So we've got F, which stands for focus on what's in your control. So this is a really important aspect, because there are so many things happening in our environment that we can't control. We can't control what happens with the virus. We can't control what the government is going to decide. We can't control what's going to happen in the future when we're going to come out of lockdown. We often can't control our feelings because they just come to us. And it's absolutely normal and understandable that we would be flooded by various feelings. But what we can control is our behavior and our response. And actually this bit of this F bit of the model, I think goes very well with the worry tree, which is a really helpful model for anything that we have in mind that we want to really dissect and understand. So first of all, noticing what we're worried about, and really understanding, is this a hypothetical worry about a hypothetical situation, in which case is it helpful to be thinking about it because we don't know that it's happening, or is it a real worry about something that I can, and there is something that I can do about it. So you've got your tree, and if there's, think about your worry, is there something I can do about it? If the answer is no, then you let the worry go, because thinking about it is just ruminating. On the other hand, if there is something that I can do about the thing that I'm worried about, then think of an action plan. And when I've got my action plan, I'm thinking, what do I need to do? When do I need to do it? Do I need to do it now? If I do it now, and then let the worry go. If I can't do it now, plan for it, schedule it, and then let the worry go because it's already planned. So every time that there's a worry, I think every time that you're coming into this kind of F bit, the worry tree is quite helpful. So A, acknowledge your thoughts and your feelings. Just noticing, just observing, staying curious about what's happening, what you just thought, what you just felt, just observing it and not judging it, so being kind to yourself. And once you've noticed and acknowledged what's happening, try to come back into your body. So if your thoughts and your feelings have taken you somewhere else, try to ground yourself. There are several techniques. You can think of other things, so this is not something that you need to do specifically, but things like pushing your feet into the floor, pressing your fingertips together. So coming into your body, grounding yourself. So this is part of what we call dropping the anchor. So you've noticed and acknowledged all of these feelings and these thoughts, and you're starting to drop the anchor, grounding yourselves. And what do we do when we drop the anchor? Does it stop, a wild sea or a storm, or It doesn't, but it grounds the ship. So what we want to do is, yes, things are happening outside that we can't control, but we're grounding ourselves and we're dropping the anchor. So once we've engaged with our body again, we engage in what we're doing. So if there's something in particular that we're doing and we've been distracted from, look around the room, maybe notice 5 things that you can see, 5 things that you can hear, things that you can smell or taste. So these are very much mindfulness-based principles about grounding ourselves. Notice what it is that we're doing, what the task actually is, and then giving our full attention, again intentionally, to the task or the activity at hand. So moving on to the C, that stands for committed action. So once you sort of, like we said, drop the anchor, it's about really thinking about, okay, what can I do right now? It can be quite small, doesn't have to be a huge thing, that will improve my life or improve the life of the people that I'm living with, my family, or the people in my community. So there's always things that we can do where we're doing that committed action, we're doing that intentionally. And it can be really tiny things that just bring us back to the things that we want to do to better the lives of ourselves and people around us. So things like preparing a healthy meal. That could be for yourself or for your family, for your community, for a neighbor who maybe isn't able. Doing some exercise, meditating, listening to music, calling a loved one, playing a game with your children, suggesting that your children lead a game, doing an act of kindness. So actually thinking about, you want to do something positive for the community. Is there something that you can do? Is there maybe someone who needs medical help that you could maybe help them with? Is there any errand that you can run for someone? So within the pandemic, we've seen a lot of people reflecting on those small acts of kindness that really are part of that committed action. So the O from COVID, yes, O, opening up. So opening up is really opening up ourselves to whatever we are feeling, even if it's something that we think is quite negative, although no feeling is negative, and there aren't any negative feelings because all of the feelings are here for a particular reason. And even if we're feeling things that we didn't want to feel in the moment, or they're just rushing to us, it's about opening up and acknowledging them and making room for them by being kind to ourselves. So if we're going to be doing that committed action and helping other people and helping ourselves with really trying to better our lives and our everyday actions within the community, we really need to be thinking of that instruction that we always get when we're on the plane. And this has been a while back for all of us being on a plane, but you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help any child that you are traveling with. So this is really important, and this is not about being selfish or self-centered. It's about you having to actually give yourself that space before you're able to give someone else that space. Very important. The V stands for values. So again, when you're thinking about that committed action and you've opened up that space, that's a really good time to reflect. And again, you can do this as a family or as a unit, really thinking about what your values are. And it might be something that doesn't roll off the tip of your tongue because it's not something we talk about every day, but really thinking about what do you want to stand for in the face of the crisis? What kind of person do you want to be? And really thinking about, even if you come across difficulties, how can you add some of these values with little actions and little things in small ways in your life? So things might be going in a way that are really becoming a barrier to your wider goals, but how can you follow your values even in smaller ways? Finally, the final two bits of our acronym I, identifying resources. So this is coming to the more practical bit, but really thinking about, for yourself, everyone is in a different situation, and there are different things that we all need to consider. So really thinking about what kind of assistance or care we might need, what kind of support is available to us, family, friends, community, any helplines, where we get our advice or information, so being selective about the sources that we use, and making our own action plans. So if there is an emergency, what is the action plan? Just so we know what steps we're going to take. And on the flip side of that, really thinking about, well, if there are any resources that you're able to use to support others who might be in a different situation from yourself, then what is it that you're able to offer? How will you be able to offer that? How will you let them know? But also making sure that you will be able to be supported in supporting others. So making sure that you thought through that. And lastly, making sure that you disinfect and distance physically. Obviously, we've all been hearing this advice, but making sure that we're following reliable and valid sources such as the World Health Organization or the local government advice.